doing martial arts very shortly after I immigrated to the United States. I didn't speak any English. I didn't have any connections here. So martial arts was like the place I probably felt safest. It really helped me feel like I had a place to belong. Sword was always this thing that's kind of seemed at the heart of Japanese martial arts. And me and some other friends were kind of looking for sword teachers, and there just wasn't much of that. We kind of put the word out that we wanted a traditional sword teacher, and a friend of ours heard some kiaing in the back of the Buddhist temple in downtown LA, and kind of went to check it out and saw Abada Sensei, who had not that long before then come to the United States, and was teaching back there. And so he got a hold of us and he was like, "Hey, I think I found a guy, you know." So a lot of, I think, sort of for the casual martial artists coming in the door, they generally didn't stay for very long, you know, if at all. You know, he was very traditional that way. Like, people would come in and, you know, kind of expect to be like, talk to him, great and love her, and you just go, nah, you know, sit down, you know. I felt like teaching was the way to give back to the art. And I
came to the dojo about a little over 3 years ago to train Aikido, and I was very impressed by the way that the classes were held and by Mike Sensei's teaching, and I noticed right away that they had Toyomaru Batoro, Japanese sword classes.
So I would never thought I would step into a dojo because I had all the stereotypes about it, and then I met the sensei at this dojo during the Occupy movement, and I saw the sword class, and that sparked an interest, and I've been here ever since.
I started training again because my partner was already training here, and thought it might be a good idea to take on jiu-jitsu, which was kind of a weird thing for me because I felt I had wanted to take it up again, anything up again when I was 30, and I thought I was too old then. So then here I am stepping in at 42 and going, all right. It was a weird thing for me to do because I'd never considered taking sword in my life. It hadn't occurred to me. Fascinating thing to do, and here I am 18 months later enjoying it and plan on doing it for a long time.
Training martial arts, and specifically sword, is very awesome because you have to clear your mind from whatever you had going on in your day, because you need to be focused on what you're doing, whether you're simply just doing basic cuts, or you're doing kumitachi where you're training with a training partner and you're both basically attacking or defending against each other. Whatever frustrations you have that you cannot clear out definitely come out in your techniques, and so it's very valuable to be able to come to class, not only to work on your training but also to clear your mind of the day's stress.
I can tell you that I've rarely regretted coming to class. It's easy to come to class. It's more, for me, it's the discipline of coming to class, and then being in class is the easy part. The only thing I've given up is Friday nights.
In a lot of ways, martial arts, or swords specifically, has been a form of very cheap therapy, but not totally cheap. It's priceless. It's actually very priceless therapy in a lot of ways. There was so much somatic exploration and so much that our body holds. For me, it's been worth it. It's been worth it in so many ways, and it's become part of my lifestyle, and it's helped me heal in a lot of ways with a lot of historical complex trauma that I've
studied sword in Chinese martial arts, and that study started in the 70s, but because I always was geared more towards Japanese martial arts, I was really interested in that, though some of my Chinese martial arts training also had some very good sword background. And so I would say early on I was primarily just really interested in learning traditional weapons. The thing that I found particularly interesting about Toyomaru is that, well, the target cutting aspect is something most of the other sword arts don't have, right? Toyomaru, because of the emphasis on using sharp blades and on using sharp blades to cut. When you do martial arts in LA, it is quite likely that you're connected to the film industry in some way, shape, or form, you know? And Obata Sensei, of course, in particular was. You know, it was hard sometimes because especially I feel like the producers and directors had no idea what they were talking about. You know, they wanted what they thought was authentic martial arts, but when you did something authentic, they actually didn't want that. They wanted something spectacular. You know, because the truth is a lot of stuff that is functional, that works, is too subtle to show up on camera. Obata Sensei came to Dojo one time from filming maybe Black Rain, and he was real upset because the director had been like, oh yeah, we need to make you look a little scarier. Why don't you put that, you know, that war paint the Japanese gangsters use on him? And he said, what? He goes, yeah, you know, that war paint, you know. And he said, you mean the tattoos? And he said, yeah, whatever. I mean, he's just, you know, he came back furious. He's like, war paint, you know? You can't tell the difference between Japanese people and Native Americans, like, you know? And Obata Sensei came over to me and he said, my agent called me today and wants me to be in a nature documentary. And I said, what? He goes, yeah, he wants me to be in a documentary about turtles. He goes, can you maybe talk to him and find out what this is about, because I'm very confused. And I said, did he say something? And I started thinking, I go, you mean Ninja Turtles? He goes, yeah, what do turtles have to do with ninjas? I don't understand. I said, oh, you know, it's an American comic book. And he said, really? Very kind of skeptical. I said, yeah, it's called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It was very sad, you know, because he really, I think, wanted to play a more substantial role. He had a hard time speaking English, and frankly, I mean, I think at that time, and still to some extent, Hollywood was just not ready for an Asian person to star in a dramatic, serious role like that, you know. I mean, I think Last Samurai, it's not that it was actually in terms of representation of sword technique the worst offender. They actually had, you know, they had an American crew and a Japanese crew. And some of the Japanese practitioners were quite good. But in short, basically, this is Japanese history that had nothing to do with it. White guy coming in and kind of saving the day or doing this or that, right? So basically, what this whole idea, of course, that they inserted some white guy into Japanese history and had him be the star of the movie, like, yeah, okay, for an American movie, I can see how that's necessary, but it's still pretty offensive.
Just how the way the world has evolved and not evolved. You know, somebody's got to continue that tradition of keeping some very deep-rooted culture alive as hopefully as long as possible and hopefully forever. And I think that's where Toyomaru Batodo comes in as an art that, even if it's the Westerners, at least in my experience, keeping it alive, it's hopefully something that will continue as a legacy.
I would teach the world a good side, you know? Because again, this is where sort of the thing I was talking about earlier, which is the whole sort of what do people walk in the door thinking is most important to learn, right? People go, oh, self-defense, I need to be, it's like, well, how about wearing a uniform? You know, every year I have students who come to me and say, thank you for teaching me to fall. I was on my, it's usually skateboard, bicycle, whatever, and then I, you know,